All right, so let's jump in. Welcome back to the next episode of the Black Box, episode 2, official podcast of Aftermath LLC. It's been a minute since we did our first one. Things happen. Work schedules, life schedules, etc. But we're here.
It's Tamm's fault.
It's really the game's fault. Like, the game's got to be better if it wants people talking about it, and not just
limited chance to test the Legionnaire for 9 days. You can't fault me for not doing the podcast because I was testing the Legionnaire for 9 days.
So when are we getting it?
NDA, sorry.
He told them to go back to the drawing board and start over.
Start from scratch. I
told them it wasn't a fun experience and they need to do it again.
Start over, just like the Merchant Man.
Deleted the file, said go again.
We know we've got 4.4.7.2 and 4.8 just around the corner. I don't know if we have firm ETAs on those, but I think it's supposed to be sometime next week and then mid-May when those are coming.
Dot 2 is listed as Wednesday on the
Wednesday. Nice.
This week
okay.
And Star
Yep.
Citizen.
All right. So April 22nd then. And dot 8 is for May, and that's going to come with ILW, Invictus Launch Week. Another damn free fly from what I've read. I don't know about you, I know the free flies are important for getting people into the game, but I really hate them. To any prospective player who wants to participate in a free fly, the number one thing you can do to not make me hate the free fly, and you by extension, is just stop abandoning your ship right in front of every fucking hangar door. I don't know how many hangar doors I try to go in, and there's this just ships blocking the way everywhere. I'm sure some of those are not new players. They're probably just regular players who just got close enough and logged out. Maybe.
If you think about it, maybe that's they're just setting up basically mines in front of all the
yeah, that's basically what it is, and I have to navigate that. So good stuff, already out, and good stuff coming just down the pike. We've been hearing rumors for a while now about the battlecruiser, which is going to be the biggest ship that you can purchase. And now we finally have the details of who the manufacturer and what the name of the ship will be. Zip, what was that again?
The Anvil Odin.
The Anvil Odin. So we're sticking with that Norse mythology theme, right? So we've got the Asgard, the Valkyrie. I guess they they just have those two. So I guess it's not entirely on brand, but I guess what if they just took the Valkyrie and then just increase the scale of it, and it's just a very, very large dropship?
It'd be the ugliest thing ever. It'd be so bad.
Zip and I were actually talking about the Odin, and not to waylay your sort of summary, but
do it.
It's
in.
actually interesting because the two biggest ships that I'm aware of for Anvil are the Legionnaire and the Carrack, and those are wildly different ships, and they're relatively different from anything smaller in the Anvil lineup, and really nothing in the Anvil lineup has enough. I feel like it doesn't have enough design language to where we can have a clear idea of what the Odin is going to look like until we see the Odin, if that makes sense. There'll be aspects, I'm sure, that they'll be oh yeah, that's obviously relatively indicative or whatever, but I think it's a giant wild card. I don't think it's going to be a giant egg, like an origin ship might be, but outside of something just crazy mode, I think it could look like a lot of things.
Did you say the Legionnaire is one of their largest ships?
The Liberator. Sorry if I said Legionnaire.
Thank you. Okay. I was I didn't know that it was supposed to be large. It was supposed to be quick
Nope.
and nimble for boarding action.
Nope. The Liberator and the Carrack, which are approximately the same size.
Well, I think it's worth noting the Liberator. When was that concepted? I think it's been a little while, right?
Yeah, it's been a bit.
So I think it may be not entirely indicative of the Anvil design language, because I think the what's the newest one that we have, the
Asgard?
No, the
no.
The newest.
the gunship.
Oh,
Is
I
it-
can't remember the name off the top
the
of my head.
Paladin.
Yeah,
Thank you, the Paladin. Thank you. I think that is much more indicative of the style that they're going for. So you're probably going to be looking for a lot of thick armor plating, sloping, type design, but that's extremely vague for battle cruisers.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say like
It's
I
going to be
guess
heavily armored. It's going to have some angles.
I guess that was more my point is like I think there will be hallmarks of it being Anvil, you know, or a combat Anvil ship, because like the Liberator's not a combat ship, right? Whereas the Carrack by lore originally was, to some degree. So I do think that there will be some design language that obviously shares Liberator or not Liberator Anvilisms, but just in terms of like beyond that, you know, beyond angled armor and armor in general, you know, it's like that really doesn't. I mean, like you could literally
there's
be like,
nothing about it.
here's the bangle and this is the new Odin, and it's like, okay, that fits. You know, like you I don't think you'd be able to very easily yay or nay that, because there's nothing to go off of, I feel like.
So let's stick with the battlecruiser speculation for a little bit, just because it's fun. Biggest, it's going to be the biggest ship in the game, or just the biggest ship that you can buy? Is it bigger than the Bengal?
No.
Okay. So this
No.
sits between the Javelin and the Bengal in terms of its size.
That's the speculation. It's not confirmed. The speculation comes from, I believe, the battlecruiser class of ship is listed above destroyer, which is a Javelin class. So in theory, it should be bigger, but there's nothing saying that it's bigger. I think the only comment CIG has made in terms of its size is that it's very big.
Yeah,
Thank you, CIG.
It's pretty vague in terms of everything. And historically, they've said the Javelin would be the biggest ship that they sold, but I don't think that's going to remain true. So I also don't think it'll be bigger than the Bengal, but
I would be shocked if it was.
well, I would be shocked, but I think it's pretty nebulous still.
Uh-huh.
So speculation tags aside, assuming it's going to be bigger than the Javelin, but not as big as the Bengal, the price is going to be steep on this, right? I mean, obviously nobody knows for sure, but if we're looking at something bigger than the Javelin and we're correlating ship size to price, because I think that's a fair link, we're talking about something that's going to cost between, if you're going to pledge it, 100 and 5,000 real dollars, potentially.
War bond. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm hoping that range encompasses both war bond and credit. If they even do a store credit version, they may just say, nope, no credit for this.
You know, I really think it heavily depends on CIG's mood on the day they decide to push the ship and how far they can realistically push it without getting a ton of backlash. So they could even have several prices in mind today. They may not even have come to a decision yet as to what they're going to price it at. They may have a range, kind of like what you're talking about, but the fact that I can reasonably in my head imagine them pushing it for over $5,000 non-war bond, that's a world I can imagine. So, yeah.
I'm not sure I can. I mean, it would not surprise me if that's what happened, but I find that to be pretty unlikely. I mean, whatever it is, there's going to be news articles about it, right? There's going to be, put aside like just Reddit chatter, like the industry will actually be paying attention to that. which I guess is part of the goal. And I think they're trying to drive away. My opinion is they're trying to drive themselves away from the reputation that this is just some kind of like a money laundering operation for Chris Roberts, right? And that thing being priced too far beyond the Javelin doesn't help. I mean, the Javelin exists. People have come to terms with that. So an incremental increase in that cost, I think people can probably wrap their heads around. But like a leap of Javelin plus 1.5 Krakens is like, I mean, the prices are getting so stupid. We have to describe them in terms of the cost of other capital ships because it's uncomfortable to say $5,000. I'll say $5,000.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I don't think I've seen anywhere where they've defined a battlecruiser. The original talk when so the battlecruiser was a stretch goal, right? It was a $17 million stretch goal, and the only description or descriptor for it was massive. And obviously there's been some alluding to it in various videos more recently, obviously confirming it and so on. And they've indicated it's big, but that really doesn't mean anything, right? And the wiki compares it in size, like is in terms of class, right, to escort carriers. But I don't know if that's something that the devs have said or if that's just, you know what I'm saying? Like at that point, you're starting to go out on a limb there, you know?
Yeah.
So if that is the case, the Pegasus is the escort carrier that I'm aware of. And that's like 900 meters. And I believe that's still less than the Bengal, but a good bit more than the Javelin. I'm not sure offhand. I was trying to pull up the
while he looks that up, if I were to put a prediction on the record today of what I think it's going to be, I can reasonably see a $3,500 war bond with a $4,000 non-war bond price.
Yeah, that's about, I think
it's about a $700 premium over the Jab.
I think it's going to land. That's where I think it'll land somewhere around that area. I mean, what do you, besides scam, what do you guys think some of the industry response will be to that?
If I were to create a headline off the top of my head, it's going to be a game that has taken 4 years to develop, or 14 years to develop, not released, announces new JPEG or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure it won't be charitable by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, here's the other piece of this that I think now CIG probably has to contend with and give real thought to when it comes to how they want this to be perceived is this is a very different economic climate than when they first started launching $2,000, $3,000 ships. It does look kind of tone deaf to put something out right now that costs that. It's not as tone deaf as buying it, but it looks pretty tone deaf to sell it. That's just my take. And so I do think they probably have to grapple with that. Like, you know, the ships and the sub $100 ships, I think people, whatever game, there's lots of games with microtransactions or whatever. They're not really micro at that point, whatever they're called nowadays.
These are macro transactions.
They're just transactions. You don't even need to like qualify them. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that, because I'm sure they don't want to get hit with whatever that accusation is about the, you know, how the game is gouging people.
I mean, I think to a degree they've already committed to
gouging,
doing something, right? In regards to defending themselves on that front, I think the only possible way that they could manage to pull off that would be if it's not as big as we're expecting, and they price it under the Jav. But even that, like,
Would be surprising.
it would be surprising. There'd be probably some level of disappointment, but also, you're still talking about an asset that's $2,000 to $3,000, and that's still a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? Like, is it, well, but it's not $5,000. And it's like, okay, but it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's still like, you could still, back
You're
in my
still in
day,
used
buy a
car
used car with
territory.
that.
Yeah.
So here's a really other important point I want to talk about, related to like the price of this. And I guess I'm fast forwarding a bit because I wanted to get to crafting and resources and resource quality, and then to ship crafting and ship quality, because we started talking about this last night. Yeah, I think it was last night. But like this idea out there now that pledged ships are going to be at some default level of quality that's not great, and that people who craft ships in game will be able to craft ships to a higher quality tier than the default pledged ship quality. Will that hold true for ships of this size? Like, if you're gonna buy a $5,000 battlecruiser, could you reasonably expect it to be as good as or better than what somebody who makes it in game gets? Or is like this is the little trap CIG seems to have set for themselves, is like, I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation for that person. But then again, some people are worried about perceptions of pay to win and things like that. So where do we put that line, or where do they put that line? We don't get to put it anywhere.
So with the crafting ships and the quality thing, right? Just a little bit of a recap for those unfamiliar with that. CIG said, I think it was in their crafting guide, they kind of talked about the future of that. They want ships to be craftable and all of that. And they said that most things will have 3 tiers of functionally quality, and with 1 being the baseline, and then 2 and 3 being higher. But they specifically said ships will have 5 tiers of quality, with 1 still being the baseline all the way up to 5, right? And so when you pledge ships, and this is all this is all speculative, but this is kind of what they said they're looking at heading towards. So subject to change, but when you pledge a ship, it's tier 1 quality. It will never degrade below tier 1 quality, according to what they said. So it will never become unusable, but it is that baseline tier. So there are 4 tiers better of quality that your ship could have been, but isn't because it's pledged. You do have the capability of upgrading it, but they also said that upgrading something from like tier 1 to tier 5 is more expensive than just crafting the tier 5 thing. So with that being said, it makes it look like, and this is my opinion, it makes it look like on the, like, just off the cuff, that pledging is a worse deal than just crafting, because obviously everyone wants the best. So, like you're not going to get the best for the same amount of resources if you just pledge, right? But to your point, Witty, I think where that one of the places where that starts to not become the case is stuff like this, right? Because to even access a ship like this, you've got to get access to the blueprint, and this is not the level of blueprint that I think they'll just have like laying around that's like super easy to get to, right? So just off the off of that, it's not going to be easy to get the baseline blueprint for this, and then to get the higher tiers of blueprint. They've said you've got to do more missions to earn the upgraded tiers of blueprint. So,
and the materials needed to actually craft the thing.
And the materials needed, right? And so, I think it'd be very, very, very difficult for a ship of this type, size, and scale to get that top tier blueprint. And then even when you have that top tier blueprint, I think it's going to take an obscene amount of resources to actually do that crafting. And so for a lot of players, because no offense to most people and their aspirations, I think most people who are buying these sorts of things are not the kind of people who have hundreds or thousands of org mates where you're going to be fielding this in the way that it theoretically is meant to be fielded, right? And so for the orgs that do, they're going to be in the position where they can actually grind out the blueprint, grind out the materials, get that upgrade, right? But for everybody else, I think this is like optimal for pledging compared to like a Buccaneer, for example. Like if you want to fly a Buccaneer, that's probably going to be much easier to earn the blueprint, probably much easier to upgrade the blueprint, probably much easier to craft a Buccaneer comparatively, right? And so I think that's if CIG stays with what they've laid out, I think that's going to be the meta, is a lot of these really big ships that are harder to get, more expensive, all that are really the optimal pledge, and all the small stuff is a bad deal if they keep as is. But that's just my opinion.
I do want to add on the difficulty portion when it comes to crafting ships of that size, because I think anything at the very least Javelin or bigger, I think you can probably go smaller than that, will absolutely need the dry dock in space to build and to craft, which is an entirely another level of blueprints and materials needed, because you need to have that active space station to even begin crafting something like that. And then that kind of functionality won't be coming into the game for, I think, quite a while. So even if it's going to be really valuable to own the ship now, because you won't be able to craft it for the foreseeable future, because that functionality is not coming into the game anytime soon.
That's assuming that they allow the ship to enter the game and be flown before it's crafted. I mean, that is an assumption, right? It's entirely possible they say, oh, no. I mean, you bought it, but it's not flyable until the first blueprint is found or accessible. So I know I'm putting a damper on some of this for you, Zip. I don't mean to attack you personally. I'm just...
I'm ready. Go ahead.
I'm just saying.
Over.
Just saying some of this. Just some of their tendencies have. It just makes it seem less appealing sometimes when you think about what they do. And I really hadn't thought about it in the context of what Tamm was saying last night until earlier today, and I was like, yeah, that would be kind of shitty if you you buy that ship and then they're like, oh, but it's tier 1 and sucks to be you. Too bad, so sad.
Yeah, and I think that is fair, but I think once you're in that kind of class of ship, I'm not really sure how much it would make a difference. I mean, that's something we have yet to see how that's actually going to be implemented for these ships, but whether or not I'm fighting a tier 1 or tier 5 battlecruiser, I'm still fighting a battlecruiser.
I mean, but look, maybe this is not a good comparison, but like there are versions of the Idris that don't have a weapon on them, right? And so that is an Idris, and somebody who has a railgun also has an Idris, and one of those is clearly more of a threat than the other, right? So the variance that you see in T1 to T5 of the battle of the Odin could be something fairly dramatic. It may, or not. It could be durability, longevity, endurance, things like that. But not pure lethality. But we don't really know. But again, I don't put it past them anymore to be to decide that it's totally okay to have that level of variance.
I think that like those levels are going to be impactful again for the people who are using it to its utmost potential in the arena where they're using it against peers who are doing the same thing, if that makes sense. Like for example, Zip, like if you're dogfighting somebody who has roughly your skill, right, and you're both in Hornets and they're using a tier 1 and you're like, hey, I can get a 20% boost in every stat I have by using a tier 5. Like,
yeah, I'm
that's
win
going to give you
fights.
a massive buff, right? Just because you know what I'm saying? Random numbers didn't come from anywhere, but like, I'm just saying that like, I think that sort of thing, which is why I say that's such a good pledge, especially for the people who are wanting it and they're not necessarily going to be using it to like eking out every degree of performance that they possibly can from it, right? I think that's where like pledging it makes more sense than a lot of things, but that again, that's just a guess. I'm honestly, I hope they don't do that in terms of the quality of ships. I honestly would prefer quality of components, quality of weapons, stuff like that. Like they have done flight blades, like quality of flight blades, because flight blades, they could use those for a whole variety of things and drastically change how things work in your ship. And that would still be, to me, a better setup than adding an arbitrary tier to your ship frame itself. Again, I think we talked about this yesterday, Zip, but like adding stuff like armor upgrades, where it's like there's an aftermarket armor upgrade, where it's like you take your ship in, or you build it yourself, and it's like you're basically coating your ship with extra armor, and it's like, well, it's slower now, but it's like way tankier. It's like,
yeah.
I'm fine with that. I think that would be a really good thing. And then that way there's no perception that you're screwing anybody who helped you make this game by buying ships, by essentially nerfing their ship into the ground, if that makes sense. Because there's no like, well, let me buy a better tier of this ship. Like there is no better tier. There's upgrades. Like you could get upgrades, but like the ship is the ship, like I personally feel like that would look better. But that's just me.
I was waiting to see if you were going to respond. You seemed like you were about to say
I
something.
agree. I'm with you. Yeah.
Good. Sold. Crafting in general, having had a little more time with it, what do you guys think? I mean, besides the fact that it feels very obviously tier 0, and the blueprint like randomization still feels really weird to me. I don't quite understand that. Crafting system itself seems serviceable, but I really think like the supporting systems still feel like they need work. Like the blueprints just don't make sense to me how they get into your hands.
Well, so for me out the gate, so I like it as an idea, but I quickly realized that's just not the type of player that I am. I am much more heavily interested in the heart pumping, exciting combat kind of thing. I really don't like the tedium of either like the mining, trying to find things, trying to organize things, and the crafting. It's really cool, and I think I'm really glad that we have people in our org who are invested and interested in this thing. It's not my cup of tea when it comes to gameplay. I like killing things. So
you don't like crafting in games at all, or is it just that this implementation is one of the ones that you, because I know you've played survival games.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just that this implementation in particular is too?
I think it's the implementation
tedious?
Because if you're looking, One of the gameplay components I'm most looking forward to is base building, and I think that's an extension of crafting in a way. And I think that's something I'll be very interested in because there's a very visual benefit for the effort that I'm putting into. Like, hey, look at this really cool base or structure and defense setup that I got going on. That's something I find really interesting and cool. But crafting legs or ship components is a little less rewarding to me.
You don't like spending hours farming materials and blueprints to give yourself a 1% damage modifier, 1% chance to crit.
Yeah, it's like I got this P4 AR that looks identical to the 100 other P4 ARs that I have, except it's got better stability. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I feel like for me personally, most of the systems that are relied upon for crafting have had one or more levels of tedium injected into them. So, like, historically, I used to like mining a lot. I used to like running cargo a lot, stuff like that. And I don't know. Those have had changes in the last couple years, give or take, to where they're substantially more tedious and laborious than they used to be, and in a way that has made me not appreciate doing them to the same degree as I used to. And so from that perspective, especially when you add in the RNG of crafting, where it's like, okay, it's not just go get X amount of this resource and then we're good. It's like, go get X amount of this resource, but it has to be a certain quality rating. And if it's not, then it's not even worth doing. So like now you've got like, I'm not saying it's bad. And I'm also not a primary logistics or industrial focused player, but as somebody who has enjoyed mining and cargo hauling and things of that nature historically, it's somewhat disappointing that this process is as I don't even know what to call it, like, in terms of, I mean, it's just it's you gotta sink a good amount of time in there, and you gotta just grind. And it's
That's
like
it. It's very grindy, and it's grindy with no certainty of outcome, and that's the part that I really don't like. And it's tough to talk about this in this way because the response that like people always have is like, oh, you just want things handed to you. Well, no, it's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I'm going to set down the path of I'm going to grind for this thing. I need to know that there's some reasonable expectation that I can achieve it in, let's say, 3 hours of grind time. What's not cool is that now not only am I grinding to find this thing in the first place, but I have to get the very specific quality level. And I think we talked about last time, they have not included any mechanism yet for taking the vast majority of shit quality, right? Because like anything under 800 might as well not, you might as well just throw it out, right? Like that's how people tend to work in these kind of environments, is if it's not the best, it's just trash, so throw it away. So now you have to get that, then you've got to roll, the right quality level, and then in volume. Like it's just there's too many RNG elements to what they did with those crafting materials, in my opinion. And I know some people say they like it. Okay. I do not have the time to sink into trying to do that, to your point, Zip. Like once upon a time, maybe, but even when I had the time, that was not how I was wanting to spend it.
And for the record, CIG did specifically come out and say that they do not intend to allow you to dump, 10 of crap resource in for one good.
Well, fuck you guys then. Because
yeah, it was in the SC live recently.
That's a terrible fucking decision, in my opinion.
Well, I mean,
correct.
I think to a degree, player trading might help with that, but with the current rarity of some of these items, I think it's even if it is tradable, it's going to be at some obscene price that the average player is not going to want to pay anyway.
You mean like in general, or because of the state of inflation that we have going on right now?
Sorry, in an ideal world where I don't have 50 trillion AUEC, I'm trying to think of the perfect realm, but I don't know. I'm trying to give them a little grace on it because it is their first implementation, and so there is going to be balance.
But don't forget, like it's their first implementation, but they could have chosen to say, we're not sure if that's going to be a thing that we can do. We'll have to examine that possibility down the road. Instead, they said, we're not going to allow you to do that. So like that's a choice. So in the way that they chose to approach that. All right, let's pivot away from this for a second, but we're going to continue bashing on CIG for a minute. Just okay. Like with the resurrection of the 30K and the complete loss of like game stability that a lot of people are complaining. By a lot of people, I mean like people in our org who we can actually speak to, and then what I'm reading online. So we're not the only ones, but like 2025 was the year of stability. For a game that's had 14 years of development, might need more than 1 year of stability. But it seems like there's a lot of errors happening in let's say the past 2 months.
Well, I have a couple points. I do have to give them kudos for. I went, I think, at least a year without getting a 30K. Like we had server errors fairly regularly, but they were mostly recoverable. So I think they did a reasonably decent job at getting us away from the dark days, I guess, of when 30Ks were every couple hours and wiped any of whatever your progress was. I do think so. They switched from a feature focused development to a content focused development for 2025, and I think that's why they were able to make things a little bit more stable. But I do think it was inevitable for them to switch back to the systems development. So like the crafting and other things they're going to be adding throughout the year, which is inevitably going to add instability and issues. So I don't think there was any way for them to really avoid it personally.
No, not buying it. Sorry. No, I guess you're right. I mean, 30Ks had almost gone the way of the dodo. They weren't entirely eliminated. Occasionally people would complain about one and you'd be like, oh, how quaint. But I will say it's almost surprising to get back into that same feeling I had. Like, because when I was first playing and 30Ks were fairly common that summer, like you had a certain level of like persistent apprehension about anything you were doing. But and almost the same time, like a resignation to not be attached to anything because it was pretty much just like you were on borrowed time.
I hope I can land before the 30K hits. I hope I can turn in this mission before the 30K hits.
I hope I can get this on the ship before 30K. I hope I can take off before 30K. I hope I can get, I hope I don't fall out of the ship during quantum. And then 30K, like you had to stack your hopes and your fears and deal with it. And then we got to a point where it was so good. We had the audacity to go do multiple runs of things without, banking every 10 seconds. And that has come right back because I've had so many issues of ships vanishing, disappearing, connects, things not loading, audio glitches that turn into crash to desktop, just stuff like that. That feeling is back, and so like I was doing told you guys I was doing a mission with the Hull B the other night, and then it just like the landing gear got stuck in the hangar geometry, the ship exploded, then turned purple, everything was gone. I was like, well, I'm not doing that again.
I have a very strong suspicion, and Tamm can probably tell me I'm wrong. That while they're trying to get Squadron in a stable state for release. They've taken all of their teams that are good at that and put them on Squadron rather than helping to stabilize and bug find in the PU.
But would that be the same kind of people doing that for a single player on rails FPS game? Yeah,
shouldn't be. That's more of a network and server shard thing rather than like. I mean, unless Squadron is hosted in the same way, which would be
that'd be wild,
interesting. Yeah. I hope it's not
a 30K mid mission somehow.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I hope that's not the case. But like, unless it is, I don't think that would impact. I actually like, because normally like you start seeing crazy shit like this when you have a PTU open or something, and I don't think they've had that. Like, granted, like I said, I was out for 10-ish days, but like, the only thing I've seen is they were talking about an Evo spin up, but I don't think that's successfully been done yet. So like, I don't know why this is suddenly such a persistent thing.
I guess there is a free fly, but yeah, but that's more recent. So whatever it is, it's something else. Again, I mean, it's hard to give them too much shit because we had such a good stretch, but they do need to get this under control because like it is a reminder of how brutal it has been or how brutal it was to have to deal with all that stuff, and it makes it very hard to log in and play because like just the chance of losing that is just not. And the other piece was at some point we got 30K recoveries, which do not seem to be working anymore because like they're just straight 30K and nothing is.
You don't need them anymore. 30Ks don't happen. What are you talking about?
Right, exactly. So unfortunately,
I do want to add it is particularly bad timing because I think this year is the year that they want to have a general audience be interested in Star Citizen and Squadron 42. And so for them coming into even anything remotely coming close to what we're used to in terms of bugginess is not a good thing.
Yeah, because then you get three assholes on a like mediocre podcast bitching about the stability, which could potentially reach the general audience that they're trying to get to. So not good, guys. Clean it up.
One guy listening's like, yeah, you know what? I was going to give it a shot.
It's
not anymore.
It's that one guy in the UAE who keeps streaming it over and over again, which we now know is Saturday. So all this stuff we're talking about why CIG wants this year to go well. If anybody, I can't believe there's anybody who would be listening to or watching a Star Citizen podcast that isn't aware that Squadron 42 is supposed to release this year. It's feeling more and more likely. They've put websites up that say certain things. But again, from what I understand, some people have been burned before by such promises. But this feels fairly likely, right? So we're anticipating. What did you say earlier today, Zip? You're putting it 90-10 now?
Yeah, because I think my anticipation this year was kind of 50-50 in terms of a Squadron release. A good chance they could do it, but also a pretty good chance that it could get delayed for one reason or another. Given the recent rumblings and tremors and my weird itch in my left foot, it seems a lot more likely. So I put it more like a 90-10. I'd be surprised at this point if it didn't launch in 2026, where I wouldn't have been surprised before.
And is that why we think we haven't heard about CitizenCon details yet?
I think that's exactly why we haven't heard about CitizenCon details. I am the one that's been bitching about it more than anyone else every week. CitizenCon news? No? Okay, cool. Time to go run over a cat or something. Yeah, but it's been frustrating. I don't mean that literally, just for the record.
It's as if there was in some way running over the cat was going to lead to CitizenCon's release. Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer. Like just nothing to do with the game. Just like I would like to plan for this if it's going to be stateside and I want to go and rent a place to stay. People have to get these things in order, and some of us, because of the children that we have to plan it even further than ordinary folks. CIG, if you're listening to this, and I know at least one of you does, I would like to book a hotel. So please give us some indication of CitizenCon dates.
Hey, look, I honestly, if Squadron is releasing this year and they want to tie Squadron to CitizenCon in some way, I have a really hard time not seeing Chris wanting it to be held in Manchester. So,
man, that's a tough one for me. Because I enjoyed that trip, but like, I don't know that I want to go back for that.
don't abandon me, Witty.
It's such a. I was so tired. It was not.
Who's gonna wake me up?
Your alarm. Charge the phone. I mean, I guess I could go longer because it was the quick turnaround that made it so exhausting for me.
It was pretty rough, yeah.
But it was fun. I don't know if I have the energy for that, but I would love for some big stateside release.
Tamm said he'd go.
I did not say that. I do think that they're going to make an Invictus Squadron date announcement. I think that's as in that's when they'll announce when it's coming out. That's my opinion. And then I think that date is either going to be CitizenCon or it's going to be whatever, like a month after CitizenCon, and CitizenCon is going to be when they start showing spoilers and whatever crap to build hype. I think that's most likely the timeline we're looking at. But I do think that CitizenCon stuff is going to be related to Squadron, and that's why we haven't heard about that. And I don't think we're going to hear anything about it until Invictus would be my guess. I think Invictus is going to have some sort of Squadron related tie-in of some sort, and I think that's when the Squadron stuff will start hitting in terms of some sort of knowledge and whatnot.
What do you think it would mean, Tamm, if Invictus comes and goes with nothing Squadron related?
It getting pushed?
I don't know, honestly, because they've made some Squadron moves this year already that honestly don't make sense outside of a Squadron push in the near future. And Invictus is literally the second biggest, in-game thing that they have. And Invictus in the game is a military recruiting event. So it literally
honestly
makes sense. It literally makes sense for them to tie that into Squadron 42. And so if Invictus comes and goes and they don't say anything, I genuinely don't know. That's like it. I have no idea what you guys are doing over there. If you just missed that, then I have no idea what plans you have. It doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah.
There's somebody on the sales side of that business who has no idea that Invictus has anything to do with military recruiting. And they're just like, we sell ships. That's it.
Numbers go up.
But that just means they're bad at their job. If that were true, that just means they're bad at their job, because it's that's the kind of crap you have to know, because there's at least a portion of your audience where, you know what I'm saying? You're basically selling an immersive world and stuff. And so jumping off of stuff like that is a perfect way to hook people into it. And so it's if you're not leveraging that, then you're doing something wrong.
Game is sitting at 965 million.
175,545.
I didn't think the 170K was too relevant, but I guess I was wrong. They look like they're tracking compared to last year. Oh,
they're up, I think, 16% from, if I'm reading this graph correctly.
That's what it says, 16%.
And I'd be curious to know if Squadron 42 funding is going to be tracked the same way they track Squadron 42 pledge funding, or if it's a separate pool that we won't even get to see.
Say that again.
So we're able to. So CIG is open with pledge donations, right? It's on their website. You can go look at it right now. I don't know if they have the same kind of policy for people who decide to pre-order Squadron 42. So we may not see that money.
Yeah, I would say probably not. I don't know that they consider that to be part of the open development process. So we'll just have to guess.
Well, plus, like, that's a little bit of an interesting thing. Like, if they're trying to separate that pool and, like, this is Squadron money, then it's like, okay, how many people already have a copy of Squadron, where it's like, where does that fit, you know?
Well, let's talk about that big scandal then that ravaged the Star Citizen world, where CIG, without announcing, just kind of decided that you could no longer buy back pledges that had a copy of Squadron 42 attached to them that had been sitting in your buybacks. This is a little bit different than how they handled other things that they were sunsetting. So when they did the Aurora that you'd no longer be able to get, they kind of gave notice to people so that if they wanted to get it out of buybacks, they could do that. There is basically two sides to this, which is one, hey, that was a real dick move. Like, this is clearly just just for greed, because now you want to force people to have to buy Squad 42 at whatever the higher price is going to be, as opposed to getting buybacks for the, 3 buttons and a paperclip that I paid for it back in 2013. The other school of thought is people saying that, buybacks were never intended to be long-term storage for anything that you might want. So treating it like that is at your own risk. The other thing I'll say, because I'm not personally affected by this, but I do find it to be pretty fucking tacky on CIG's part, is because whether they want people to view the buyback system as storage or not, I think the way that they've handled it for other things that they were sunsetting, combined with the fact that they actually do provide us with 4 buyback tokens a year, means that they're very well aware of the fact that people use it in that way and would like to be aware when something they already own will be inaccessible. And so it is a choice that they make to do that. Whether that's okay or not, it's their system. But that's the piece that rubs me the wrong way, is, their participation in it, essentially, by giving these quarterly tokens, or it's more than 4, right? You get two a quarter, Tamm?
For concierge, yeah.
Right, sorry. So you get two a quarter. So 8 total. That suggests to me like they know. So I don't know if it was if it should be viewed as a greed thing, or if there's some cleanup that they have to do with their system. But I thought it could have been handled differently and better, in my view.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they have multiple times with the pledge store and buybacks and things of that nature. They have done no notice things before. It's generally not positively received, but they have done that before. So, like, for example, like CCUs used to maintain their purchase price. So if you melt those, it would maintain whatever you paid for it. So people would buy like a CCU from like a normal ship to a concept ship, and then they just melt it. And then when that concept ship comes out, they just rebuy their CCU at the price they paid, and voila, there they go, right? And CIG turned that off at some point. I don't even know how long ago that was, like 5 years, 7 years, I don't know. But like, they've done that before. And again, sometimes they give notice, sometimes they don't. Again, it's oftentimes not super well received if they don't. But I think, as somebody who was affected by this, they give you a lot of warnings when you melt anything, and it's really easy to click through it and be like, yeah, whatever, they give
That's
you a lot
fair.
of warnings. And I do have things in my buybacks that I consider, stored, so to speak. And I have those there with the knowledge that those could vanish. I mean, that's not optimal. I don't want that, and I wouldn't appreciate that. But again, anytime you melt, it's they say it like 17 different ways. I'm exaggerating, but like basically, like, I mean, they even say this is permanent, and it's like, okay, we all know the buyback system and blah, 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 but like they give you a bunch of warnings before you melt something. And so with that, it's like, do I like that I'm unable to now access some of the things that I had? I'm not a fan, but I think that's reasonably fair. It's again that they give warnings, and you should be aware of that if that's how you're using the buyback system. It's very much at your own risk, and it's very much subject to change. I mean, it's the same thing with they've kind of hinted at the idea of if you, like, let's say you buy a concept ship, which they're ideally doing away with, but like you buy a concept ship and then melt it, and then that concept ship comes out, and then you like rebuy it from your buybacks at the original price. They've hinted that at the original price thing is going to go away, like in terms of like that ship will just not be buybackable or whatever, because there was like a major price change, right? And so again, it's one of those things where it's just like, hey, it could go tomorrow, like you could be like I've not to leak what I have, but like, I've got a concept galaxy with like all the modules, and so it's like, that could release, and then they could be like, well, you didn't buy it back, when it released, so yours is just toast, they could do that. I wouldn't appreciate it, but they could. And so, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of no notice. Like I like for them to give us a warning, but I really think it's fair that they don't, because they give you warning when you melt.
Well, I do think it's worth noting the specific reason why they did it the way they did this time. I mean, it's an obvious sign that we've been discussing that some form of Squadron 42 pre-order may be going live soon, and this is their attempt to get ahead of a gray market sale. So it just comes down to they're just trying to get ahead of the gray market sucking away a lot of their potential revenue on a Squadron 42 pre-order. So it's very much a revenue-driven decision. So it's like, this is going to be their biggest sale probably ever. So I'm not shocked they did this. So
I will say the only counter to that is like, if your way of pre-ordering Squadron is multi-$1,000 pack, that's a little crazy. And those were impacted. I mean, because like that was my stuff that was impacted were those. I have a standalone copy that I have attached to my account that I'm, so I still have Squadron, but I'm just saying like my packs were nuked. And I would find it odd if that's your methodology of like, oh, I don't want to pay $60, so I'm going to pay $2,000 over here. It's like, okay, or not $2,000 because gray market. So it's like, oh, I'm going to pay $3,000 for ships that are barely worth that and a copy of Squadron. Like, okay, interesting, but.
Well, I mean, for the kind of money most players in Star Citizen are willing to put into the game, like hundreds of dollars, if not thousands per ship, I don't think a lot of players are going to balk, is that the right word, at a $60, $70 game. Like that's a decent starter ship price. So like, it'll be okay.
Well, it is now. It used to be $40.
That's true.
$9.56 is not immune to inflation. It followed us all the way through. All right, gents. I think we've covered quite a bit there. Anything else urgent or pressing for us to touch on?
Listen, if I don't get CitizenCon news soon, I'm going to crash out. That's all I have to say.
You have another month, probably.
Going to crash out, Tamm.
I just said.
He's been.
Did you not hear my theory? Invictus, you have another month.
Not soon enough. You're still going to see me in the Discord every week saying no CitizenCon news this week.
Nothing yet, Witty. All right. Well, Tamm, any final thoughts from you before Zip has an emotional moment here?
I think the whole B is a great ship, and I'm glad they added it.
Yeah, we never talked about that. Good ship.
We didn't really talk about that. We'll save that for next time. We didn't get to do a full ship review. All I did was complain that it got stuck in the hangar.
Yeah, they just released the best cargo hauler ever, and we just glazed over it. It's fun.
It is a very cool ship. The animation is one of the coolest things that a ship can do in the game. It's pretty slick when it's not getting stuck in the hangar floor.
And they added the whole E as a CCU. Not that we need to stop closing, but I'm just saying that was incredibly notable.
Oh wait, and didn't they take the Pioneers no longer hull limited? Is that right?
Correct. But no,
Really?
Hold on.
No. It is. It was sold out.
Wasn't there something that was hull limited that's no longer hull limited?
Phoenix.
It was the Phoenix. Yeah,
that was it. That stupid ship that nobody cares about.
They're going to do
They need
Mark
to make
II
the
anyway.
890 not hull limited. And they need to make a CCU for the 890 because I would buy that.
They won't unless they come out with a 900 exemplar or something. They're not going to.
And they need to make that have a CCU.
All CCUs. All right. Well, let's put a pin in this one. Some stuff to come back to for next time. Stuck with us. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you in the next one.
Good job, Saturday. Keep lifting.